Have you ever felt like the world outside is saying exactly what you feel inside, only out loud? As if the wind were shouting its own urgency, as if the rain were washing away your old guilt, as if the thunder were calling your name and saying, "No more procrastination." Maybe you're tired of carrying burdens no one sees. Maybe you're smiling on the outside and crumbling on the inside. And yet, there's a stubborn spark begging for passage, a silent promise that you can weather the storm and come out the other side, more whole than ever. Today, I want to take you on a journey that begins with a news story and ends in your heart. Because what's happening on the weather map isn't just a picture of clouds and arrows. It's a reflection of what you feel when everything seems out of place. Hurricane Melissa, which gained unusual strength in the Atlantic and moved toward the Caribbean with winds exceeding 280 km/h, is a harsh and, at the same time, hopeful reminder. Nature can tear down what no longer stands, but it also opens paths we wouldn't have the courage to forge alone. If you follow me, I promise you something simple and true. You will understand why this brute force can be the beginning of your lightness. There's a moment as we look at satellite imagery and the day's headlines when everything seems technical, distant, almost cold. But then the news hits us, piercing the screen and pounding us in the chest. A rapidly rotating mass, growing, buoyed by warmer than normal waters, transforming into a Category 5 hurricane, with sustained winds of 175 mph, about 280 km/h, about to hit Jamaica, potentially causing damage the residents won't forget for generations. This isn't media hype. It's the reading of those who measure, monitor, and warn. And at the same time, it's a call to see beyond fear. What roars outside also demands change inside, as if the winds have come to collect the remains of stories we've postponed forever. When you hear that the pressure at the center has dropped to historic lows, and that the eye wall of the storm is approaching slowly, almost cruelly, as if knowing the effect of its own presence, your first reaction is to contract. The second, if you allow it, is to breathe, because contracting is instinct, but breathing is a decision, and every decision opens a corridor of possibilities within us. The world speaks of waves, tides, predictions, warnings. I invite you to listen to the message that permeates all of this. There are things that need to be released. There are structures that no longer support what you have become. There are entire rooms inside you filled with broken objects that merely take up space. The wind outside, however frightening, points to a loving discarding within. Perhaps you felt that life has prepared the ground for a change, but you've been waiting for an explicit sign, a bright sign, someone giving you permission. There's no clearer authorization than the movement of the earth itself, rearranging what was dormant. Melissa's route isn't just a line on the map, it's a finger pointing in the right direction. Leave the place where your courage doesn't fit, dismantle the shelter that's become a prison, rebuild your roof from the inside out. It may hurt, yes. Every fundamental change has its cost, but there's pain that liberates and pain that imprisons. The first comes with wind and water, the second with silence and dust. Which one are you choosing to feed? As sirens blare, shelters fill, and families shield their windows, another movement is taking place on a more intimate level. Your desire to break free from the same pattern, to avoid repeating the same excuse, the same fear, the same script that always traps you in its final chapters. The storm outside is a reminder that no cycle lasts forever. What remains is what's true, what adapts, what accepts being washed away. You don't have to be perfect to get through. You need to be honest. Honest about what needs to go, and about what deserves to stay. And if, for a moment, you close your eyes and hear the sound of the wind like a chorus calling your name, what would it ask of you? Perhaps it asks you to crouch down not out of submission but to tie your own shoelaces before the run. Perhaps it asks you to turn off the distracting lights and turn on the guiding ones. Perhaps it simply asks you to trust, not in a mystical promise, but in the patient work of pulling weeds and preparing the soil for planting. Nature doesn't negotiate with the false, nor do you need to. And that's why when the rain falls hard, remember, each drop can also be a new beginning, cleaning away what time alone couldn't carry away. Now, look at the map again with fresh eyes. These aren't colors on a radar. They're signs of a turnaround that demands presence. Winds of 280 km/h aren't just numbers. They're the raw language of a force that dismantles old furniture so the house can breathe. Jamaica braces itself. The neighboring islands tremble. And we, even from afar, are summoned to a discreet courage, to do within ourselves the same cleansing that the world outside is trying to do. hurriedly, like someone needing to take advantage of a rare tidal window. If the news scares you, let it also awaken you, because the storm passes, and what remains when the water recedes is what you decided to sow while the sky was still dark. In the beginning, Melissa was just a speck on the horizon, an atmospheric disturbance born of ordinary winds, like so many others that cross the Atlantic every year. No one imagined that this discreet breeze would become such a colossal force. But isn't that how everything begins within us too? A small discomfort, a vague feeling that something isn't right, an internal whisper that grows stronger until it becomes a storm impossible to ignore. Melissa was born small, but she carried a greater purpose: to move what was stagnant. Each twist of wind, each increase in pressure, was as if the earth took a deep breath and said, "The time has come." The hurricane's path to maturity is an accurate portrayal of the human awakening process. First comes the seed of change, silent, almost invisible. Then, heat begins to rise, energy builds, and the inner waters begin to bubble. What seemed stable becomes agitated, and suddenly, everything begins to reorganize itself with a frightening intensity. The storm grows, gains speed, and soon it becomes impossible to contain what is formed. So too is the awakening of the soul. It begins with a mild restlessness and ends with a force that tears down internal walls and forces you to rebuild everything on new foundations. Some people look at the hurricane map and see only destruction, but others see trajectory, destiny, and meaning. Melissa crossed the ocean like a pilgrim of the winds, connecting continents and ancient memories. Her route drew an invisible symbol on the waters, as if the planet itself were writing a coded message in the sky. Every storm has a purpose, and every transformation begins with movement. When you sense chaos, it's a sign that reorganization is near. The hurricane never comes to destroy the essence. It comes to free up the space where the essence can flourish. Nature doesn't take turns in vain. Every curve in Melissa's trajectory, every apparent detour, was part of a larger geometry, the dance between the unpredictable and the necessary. What if life does this to us too? Sometimes it pushes you off the path you planned, not out of cruelty, but because the destiny that awaits you is off the safe path. The wind changes, and you are forced to change with it. And in this forced displacement, you discover strengths you never imagined you possessed. Melissa's path is our own, crossing the ocean of uncertainty toward the recognition of our own power. Now imagine you're the center of this storm. Everything swirls around you. There's noise, there's fear, there's confusion. But in the eye of the storm, there's silence. A place of calm and lucidity amidst the destruction. This point is your consciousness. The world may crumble, certainties may shatter, but if you remain in this center, in the eye of your own storm, nothing can take you away. It's from there that wisdom is born. It's from there that chaos transforms into direction. Just as Melissa moved with an invisible purpose, you too carry one. You just need to silence the noise around you to hear what the wind is saying within you. There is something profoundly sacred in the fury of nature. When images show winds ripping off roofs, waves surging violently, and lightning tearing through the sky, the first impulse is fear, but then comes a feeling that no words can quite convey: reverence. Because in the face of such great force, the ego falls silent. The storm reminds humanity of what it has forgotten, that life is on loan, and that the earth has its own language. The hurricane speaks in the language of the elements, and each gust is an ancient sentence. You have forgotten who is in charge here, and yet it does not punish, it awakens. Fear, when observed closely, is simply an invitation to reevaluate our relationship with control. When you watch nature dismantle everything that seemed solid, something inside you dissolves along with it. Certainties tremble, beliefs sway, and your entire body enters a state of profound humility. This is where reverence is born, not the reverence of fear, but the reverence of recognition. Melissa's fury is not an enemy, it is a mirror. It shows the intensity of the energy that also lives within us, waiting for its moment to manifest. What you see as destruction may simply be the raw form of healing unfolding. Perhaps the greatest lesson of fury lies precisely in surrender. The storm doesn't ask for permission, it fulfills a cycle. It shows what is inevitable. What resists breaks, what flows remains. True reverence arises when we stop fighting the natural course of things. Just as trees that bend to the wind survive, while those that insist on remaining rigid end up broken, we too must learn to bend before life. Melissa teaches us that surrendering to a greater force isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Because those who surrender wholeheartedly don't lose, they transform. The force that frightens also heals. The wind that destroys a house can sweep away the heavy air that suffocated a people. The rain that floods streets can also wash away guilt that has long weighed on a region. Nothing is as it seems. When chaos manifests, it comes with a secret code, begging to be deciphered. Melissa's fury is not nature's revenge, it is purification. It is the earth taking a deep breath, exhaling centuries of accumulated dense energy to make room for something lighter. And if we observe with attentive eyes, we realize that the planet is simply doing what we are often afraid to do, cleansing itself. In the end, reverence brings us back to simplicity. In the face of a hurricane, all luxury loses value, all haste dissolves, all arrogance crumbles. Only hands, shelter, hope remain. What remains is essential. It's curious how chaos reveals the purity of things. Perhaps true planetary cleansing lies not only in the falling waters, but in the hearts of people who look each other in the eye again, who help each other, who remember to pray. Melissa restores our sense of community, of interdependence, of shared humanity. And that is why, even in the face of fury, there is beauty. Because every strength that humbles us also brings us closer to the divine. Water has always held mysteries that the human mind is only beginning to comprehend. It is not merely a physical element, it is memory, a mirror, a messenger. When a hurricane forms, it is the water that sustains its birth, fuels its growth, and guides its dance. The ocean's heat awakens movement, and movement awakens chaos. But there is something deeper happening there. Each droplet that rises in the hurricane's spiral carries ancient codes, vibrations that speak the language of time. Melissa, spinning over the Atlantic, seemed to summon these memories, awakening forces dormant in the depths of the sea, as if the waters, tired of holding on to ancient secrets and pain, decided to return them to the air, purifying themselves. This message from the waters touches us directly within. Think about it. The human body is made mostly of water. If the ocean churns, our bodies feel it. If the sea boils, our emotions boil. When the planet decides to cleanse its waters, we are also washed inside. This is why, during major storms, many people experience inexplicable emotional turmoil, intense dreams, memories returning, tears coming without warning. It's as if the inner sea is in tune with the outer sea. Melissa isn't just moving clouds, she's moving feelings. She's reminding the world that what is repressed must eventually flow. The interesting thing is that water never destroys for pleasure. It simply follows its natural instinct to return to balance. The hurricane, in this sense, is a readjustment of the system itself. When there is excess heat, accumulated energy, nature creates the necessary movement to dissipate what has become too dense. And the same goes for the human soul. How many times have you felt an emotional outburst, a sudden cry, an old anger coming to the surface? It's the same process. Stagnant energy needs to find an outlet. The hurricane is therefore the body of the earth crying, releasing, healing. There is no punishment, there is restoration. Melissa's waters also bring a reminder of humility. No technology, wall, or border can stop them when they decide to run their course. And yet, when they pass, they leave behind fertility. After the flood comes greenery. After destruction comes a new beginning. It's proof that even apparent chaos serves life. When we look at the murky surface, we may not understand its immediate meaning. But in the deeper layers, there is a purpose at work. The same is true of our personal crises. Sometimes what seems like a loss is just the ground being prepared for the new. Melissa invites us to learn from water, to flow, to feel, to let go, to not accumulate what weighs us down, to not bottle up emotions, to not feign calm when the sea is raging inside. The hurricane shows us that liberation is movement, not rigidity, and that true power lies in knowing when it's time to move, to change shape, to let go, because water never loses its essence. Even when it transforms into vapor or a storm, it always returns to being what it is. And perhaps this is the greatest lesson of all. Nothing is truly lost when the purpose is to cleanse. The planet is speaking, but few are truly listening. Every tremor, every wave, every wind carries a message. Hurricane Melissa is just one voice in this immense orchestra trying to awaken humanity from the deep slumber of disconnection. The earth is demanding attention, not in words, but in gigantic gestures. She is showing, with her uncontainable force, that something needs to change in the way we live, consume, feel, and even in the way we treat ourselves. The cleansing isn't just climatic, it's existential. It's the planet and human beings purging the same toxins, material, emotional, and spiritual, that have accumulated for eons. When you observe Melissa's trajectory, you can perceive a symbolic pattern. The storm begins small, gains strength, and then sweeps away what is no longer useful. This is the same dynamic of life. When the soul ignores the gentle signals, the earth responds with intense ones. Because everything is connected. What we do to nature, we do to ourselves. And what we heal within ourselves helps heal the world. The hurricane is a living metaphor for this reciprocity. It forces us to stop, to listen, to respect. When the wind blows hard, it doesn't ask for permission, but rather for awareness. It's a cry that says, "Wake up, it's time to align yourself with the rhythm of life again." It's curious to note how, in times of crisis, human beings come together again. Tragedies, however harsh, awaken solidarity, compassion, and empathy. People who would never speak to each other begin to help each other, to share shelter, to share food. It's as if the planet, by shaking its foundations, reminds us of what truly matters. Melissa, in all her fury, also brings this call for unity. She tears apart the false, dismantles the superfluous, so that the essential shines again. Deep down, perhaps the earth knows that the only way to awaken sleeping hearts is through impact, not to destroy, but to reignite. But there's also a more subtle layer to this call. The earth is asking us to listen. Listening isn't just about hearing sounds, it's about perceiving vibrations. It's about feeling what the silence is saying. Every leaf that falls, every drop that touches the ground, every gust of wind has something to communicate. When we ignore these signals, we create imbalance. When we learn to respect them, harmony returns. Melissa is the echo of this learning being forcibly recalled. It's the planet saying, "You forgot to listen to me. Now I'll speak louder." Not as punishment, but as a mother calling her child back home. Not with anger, but with urgency. And this call is not for fear, it's for awakening. The planet doesn't want to scare us, it wants to align us. It wants each of us to awaken to our power to collaborate with balance. The cleansing began in the sea, but it must continue within each human being, because the earth only heals when we heal. Melissa is the symbol of this beginning, a reminder that there is still time to change course, to act with more presence, to walk with more respect and less haste. The earth's fury is a reflection of human pain, but it is also the seed of our renewal. Those who understand the call will be reborn with the planet. Those who resist will be carried away by the wind of their own denial. There are moments in history when the entire planet seems to breathe in unison. Even though each person lives their life separately, there is an invisible point where emotions converge, where the collective consciousness vibrates to the same tune. Hurricane Melissa is not just a localized storm, it is a symbol of this global synchronicity. It appears as a mirror of what is happening within humanity, a buildup of pressures, emotions, and imbalances that demand release. When a natural force reaches such magnitude, it is as if to say, "You have carried too much, now it is time to let go." The earth is cleansing, but we are also being invited to do the same, together. Collective awakening begins like this, through discomfort. When the external structure breaks, when what seemed right falls apart, people are forced to look at what they've always ignored. The hurricane destroys the superfluous, and the void that remains demands filling with something real. In times like these, we realize that the security we sought outside was illusory, and that the only true strength is consciousness. The physical cleansing of the planet is accompanied by a global emotional cleansing. Masks fall, truths emerge, and hearts are tested. Melissa, by stirring the sea and the air, also stirs the collective soul of humanity, awakening it from a long and dangerous slumber. This awakening, however, is not comfortable. It demands courage to face one's own reflection. It demands abandoning old beliefs, breaking with inherited patterns, and learning to hear what once seemed like noise. Humanity has always feared chaos, but chaos is merely the moment when the new is not yet shaped. Melissa represents exactly this, the transition point between the old and the new, between numbness and awareness. When the wind tears down facades, the truth reveals itself naked, And it is in this bare space that rebirth is born. Collective awakening does not happen when the world is calm. It happens in the eye of the storm. Observe what happens during major catastrophes. People help each other, cry together, share the same fear and the same desire for survival. In these moments, borders, religions, and ideologies disappear. Only the human remains, vulnerable, fragile, and at the same time, extraordinarily strong. Melissa is a living lesson that only when the superfluous collapses can the essential flourish. Perhaps the planet is, in fact, teaching humanity to be more human. Because awakening is not an isolated mystical event. It is the sum of small gestures of empathy, presence, and love amidst the chaos. And there's a quiet beauty in this process. When the wind finally dies down and the sky clears, a different kind of light emerges. A softer, cleaner light that seems to touch everything with a new vibration. People look at each other with different eyes, more grateful, more aware. This is how collective awakening begins, in reconstruction, not in words but in actions, not in escape, but in reunion. Melissa is the symbol of a new era that begins, not through the force of destruction, but through the courage to rise again with an awakened heart. The planet is changing, and those who feel this change within themselves will understand that there is no turning back. All purification begins within. What we see happening in the outside world is merely a reflection of what moves in the invisible, both on Earth and within each human being. Hurricane Melissa may seem distant, but it touches each of us on subtle levels. It awakens old memories, dormant emotions, and unhealed wounds. When nature rises with such force, it mirrors the movement that the soul also needs to make. Purge what has accumulated, make room for the new, dissolve what no longer serves. The planetary cleansing is a clear reminder that the time has come for each of us to undertake our own inner cleansing. Purifying oneself is an act of courage. It requires looking within without masks, without filters, without excuses. It means recognizing the inner storms, the anger, the guilt, the losses, the fears, and allowing them to surface so they can be released. Just as a hurricane doesn't ask permission to blow, the soul doesn't ask permission to heal. The process may seem devastating, but there is wisdom in destruction. When something within us collapses, it's a sign that a new structure is ready to be born. Melissa reminds us that the same power that destroys also renews, and that pain can be just the preparation for new inner strength. The world teaches us to resist, but purification teaches us to let go. Resisting what needs to go is what weakens us most. Melissa's wind blows over us all with the same message. Free yourself. Let the air currents carry away old guilt, the resentments that hold you back, the fears that prevent you from growing. Allow the water to wash away what the mind insists on holding on to. True purification is not an escape. It is a return to the soul's natural state, to the lightness that was forgotten amid life's storms. When you understand this, the cleansing process ceases to be frightening and becomes sacred. Each tear that falls is like hurricane rain, necessary. Each pain that surfaces is like the wind that makes room for new air to enter. Inner purification is not a quick event. It is a dance between what dies and what is born. And the more you allow yourself to consciously participate in this dance, the less resistance there is, and more peace emerges. Melissa, in her fury, is merely a reflection of an entire planet seeking this same harmony. In the end, purification is not a punishment. It is a return to truth. When the dust settles and the heart calms, we realize that everything that fell was a weight, not a part. The reborn soul is simple, light, and free. Just as the earth after a storm shines again under the sun, human beings also rediscover their essence when they allow themselves to be cleansed. The hurricane passes, but what it awakens remains. And it is this permanence, this new clarity, this new breath, that marks the beginning of a more conscious life. Inner purification is the true beginning of the new frequency that the planet has already begun to emit. There's something profoundly transformative about the moment the hurricane says goodbye. The wind dies down, the deafening sound gives way to an echoing void. The streets are still wet, the broken branches still scattered, and the air carries the scent of freshly plowed earth. This is the moment when the world seems to hold its breath, as if trying to understand what just happened. And in this silence there's a wisdom few perceive. It's the same silence that comes after a crisis, after intense crying, after a genuine outburst. It's the space between the end and the new beginning, where everything seems suspended, and time slows down. It's there that learning reveals itself, not in words but in feeling. The post-storm silence is the womb of rebirth. Everything that was torn away needs pause to be understood, and everything that survived needs time to flourish again. The earth after Melissa breathes differently. The winds, now calm, seem to observe what remains, and we too, after our personal storms, need this respite. Without it, we fall into a rush to rebuild before understanding what truly needs to be rebuilt. Silence is not absence. It is full presence. It is the moment when the soul hears what life has been trying to say all along. During a hurricane, noise dominates. After it comes listening, and it is in this listening that true power manifests. Silence is the portal through which healing passes. It is in it that fear dissolves and purpose clarifies. Often, it is only when everything falls silent that we can hear ourselves clearly. The planet, after releasing what was trapped, teaches this in an almost poetic way. We must stop to truly understand. Melissa screamed for cleansing, but what she left was a gentle invitation. Now listen. Listen to what the wind took and what it left. It's curious how in the midst of reconstruction, people reconnect with simple things. The value of clean water, the warmth of a candle, a neighbor's hug, the dawn after darkness. These small insights are the gold that the storm reveals. Silence restores the sense of gratitude that the noise of routine had obscured. And it is in this state of gratitude that true transformation occurs. Because the world doesn't change with promises, it changes with presence. And nothing makes us more present than the silence that comes after a great purification. The calm after the storm is not the end. It is the beginning of understanding. It is the moment to look at what remains and recognize. The essential remains. Everything that fell was excess. Everything that remains is foundation. Silence shows us that life is not made of constant noise, but of conscious pauses. It is these pauses that shape the rhythm of existence, that align us once again with the flow of the earth. Melissa fulfilled the role of removing what no longer served. Now the planet prepares to flourish. And so do we. The peace that comes after chaos is the true miracle, and it begins within each of us who have learned to listen to the silence. After the wind passes, the question arises, what now? It is at this moment that humanity is tested to its core. The hurricane destroys structures, but what follows reveals what each person carries in their hearts. Rebuilding is the most delicate point, because it requires wisdom to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. It's not enough to simply erect the same walls again. We must build consciously. What Melissa took away should not be rebuilt in the same mold. Nature doesn't destroy by accident. It makes room for the new. And if the earth has changed, we too must change with it. Rebuilding isn't just about redoing what was lost. It's about reinterpreting what was learned. The cities that were hit, the families that took refuge, the hearts that were shaken, everyone now carries a new understanding. Pain, when assimilated, becomes wisdom. Suffering, when understood, transforms into compassion. Conscious reconstruction begins within, before manifesting itself without, because a new world can only be born when human beings become new as well. Melissa didn't just come to tear down houses. She came to tear down old ways of being, old ways of thinking, habits that no longer fit the vibration the planet is reaching. It is at this point that we realize that true reconstruction is not just about concrete work, but about consciousness. When people come together to clean the streets, rebuild schools, and restore homes, something deeper happens. Relationships transform. The I gives way to the we, and the we is the energy that sustains the new world. The hurricane, by shattering physical structures, releases collective energy for cooperation. Hands that once competed now reach out to help. And in this simple act of rebuilding together, humanity rediscovers the purpose it had lost, caring for life. But conscious reconstruction also requires vigilance. The old patterns always try to return. Consumerism, selfishness, haste, indifference. They are like residual winds, trying to rebuild what the hurricane has already swept away. Therefore, we must remain vigilant. Remember that Melissa was the warning, not the punishment. She came to teach that the planet can no longer tolerate excess, that human beings need to live in harmony with what sustains them. Reconstruction must follow this new law: simplicity, balance, and respect. Each brick erected must carry intention, not just function. And when this learning is put into practice, something magical happens. Cities are reborn more beautiful. People become more conscious. The air feels lighter. Conscious reconstruction transforms not only the environment, but the collective soul. It's as if the entire planet takes a new step, more aligned, more awake, more alive. Melissa, once seen as a threat, becomes a symbol of rebirth. Because in the end, the hurricane didn't come to destroy. It came to teach us how to start over differently. And those who understand this message are already participating in the reconstruction of the new world that is now being born, with every gesture of love and responsibility. After all the cleansing, after the destruction and silence, something begins to vibrate differently in the air. It's subtle, almost imperceptible at first, but it's there, a new frequency. Melissa, in all her power, didn't just leave physical traces. She left a renewed vibrational field, a kind of energetic breath that spreads across the planet. It's as if the Earth's very heart beat stronger, and in doing so, realigned the rhythm of everything living on it. This new pulse invites humanity to tune in, to move beyond the vibration of fear and into the vibration of truth. The world will never be the same again, because the energy that sustains it has already changed. The new frequency is silent yet powerful. It imposes itself not through force but through presence. It's a vibration that demands authenticity, transparency, and connection. Where there was once competition, it calls for cooperation. Where there was dissonance, it offers harmony. Melissa was the catalyst for this new state, the inflection point between the old and the new planetary cycle. The Earth, by releasing old densities, created space for higher frequencies to manifest. And this doesn't just happen in the forests, the oceans, or the air. It happens in human beings too. Our bodies, minds, and spirits are being readjusted to resonate with this new melody. You've probably already felt this shift, even without knowing how to name it. A different kind of fatigue, an inexplicable desire to change habits, to reach out to more relaxed people, to seek peace instead of reason. This is a symptom of attunement. The new frequency doesn't accept masks, doesn't support lies, doesn't vibrate with the energy of guilt. It is pure, crystalline, direct. And the more you try to resist it, the more it pushes you to the center of your own truth. Melissa was merely the physical trigger for something that had been brewing for a long time. Humanity's vibrational update. But every new frequency demands choices. There's no way to hold on to the old and embrace the new at the same time. You have to let go. Let go of beliefs. Let go of patterns. Let go of attachment to pain. And this, for many, is the real challenge. The Earth has already let go of what it needed to. Now it's everyone's turn to do the same. When you allow yourself to align with this vibration, something changes. Synchronicities intensify. Relationships adjust. Opportunities align. Everything begins to flow naturally, effortlessly, because you begin to dance to the same rhythm as the planet. The new frequency that Melissa inaugurated is essentially a return to what has always been pure. It's not an invention, it's a memory. It's a reconnection with the love that has always been present in everything. And as this vibration spreads, the entire world begins to change, not by decree but by frequency. Each awakened person becomes a point of light that amplifies this energy, and the more awakened hearts there are, the faster the planet rebalances. Melissa wasn't the end, she was the beginning, an invisible milestone that divides eras. The age of fear ends, and the age of consciousness begins. The signs of a new era don't arrive with fanfare, they arrive with subtlety. They are perceived by those who have learned to observe the invisible. They are found in small coincidences, in changes in behavior, in unexpected encounters. The planet speaks through simple gestures, a flower that blooms amidst the rubble, a community that spontaneously unites, a look that conveys hope, even after loss. These are the new signs. Melissa was the flash of light, but now comes the gentle light that endures. The world begins to reorganize itself under a new logic, more connected to the essence of being than to appearances. The signs are everywhere, and they touch the souls of those who are awake. People report more vivid dreams, stronger intuitions, feelings of déjà vu, as if remembering something they've always known but forgotten. It's the code of the new era manifesting. Awakening is no longer a distant possibility, it's an ongoing reality. The Earth, after its cleansing, is emanating a frequency of reconnection, and this vibration is finding an echo in the hearts that were already prepared to receive it. The wind now blows differently, not to destroy, but to guide. But not everyone recognizes the signs easily. Many are still trapped in the noise of fear, in the need to control the uncontrollable. The new era doesn't impose itself, it offers itself. It's a silent choice, to continue in the old pattern, built on resistance and ego, or to open to the flow of trust. Those who insist on holding on to what no longer has life will feel the weight increase. Those who let go feel lightness. It's simple, yet profound. Melissa left the planet clean so that each human being could choose what they want to sow in this renewed soil. And each individual choice adds to the collective vibration. The new era also manifests itself in how we interact with others. Superficial relationships lose strength, and true connections intensify. People who have been distant for years unexpectedly reunite, and bonds that were once unfounded naturally dissolve. This happens because the new frequency only sustains what is genuine. The false no longer has room. Melissa, by clearing the Earth's energy field, also paved the way for truth to become the foundation of everything. In our affections, decisions, spirituality, and daily choices. And if you pay close attention, you'll notice that even time seems to behave differently. Things happen faster, cycles close more fluidly, what is aligned prospers, what isn't dissolves. This is a sign that the planet is already vibrating at a different pace. A new time has arrived, and those willing to walk with an open heart will notice that life, even amidst challenges, becomes lighter. Melissa was the portal that opened this cycle, and now it's up to each of us to cross it with awareness, love, and presence. Because the future has already begun, and it is built on the choices we make now. After every storm comes the time of harvest. But contrary to what many think, the harvest is not only the result of what was planted in the physical soil, but also of what was cultivated in the consciousness. Hurricane Melissa didn't just pass over sea and land, it passed over the human mind, washing away beliefs, disarming certainties, and leaving the field fertile for a new kind of seed, that of presence. Now those who have understood the Earth's message begin to reap something invisible and precious, a calm lucidity, a silent wisdom, a serene strength born of acceptance. It is no longer a time to rush, it is a time to perceive. The harvest of consciousness is silent but powerful. It happens the moment someone chooses to act with empathy, when they decide to listen instead of react, when they forgive not out of weakness but out of liberation. These small choices are the fruits of cleansing. They are the result of the wind that swept away illusions and left the soil of the soul ready to flourish authentically. What was once confusion is now clarity. What was once heaviness is now lightness. And this process is collective. The more people awaken, the more the planet's consciousness rises, and the smoother humanity's path becomes. Melissa demonstrated, with undeniable force, that imbalance cannot be hidden forever. Everything false will sooner or later be exposed, and everything true will remain standing. This is the law of spiritual harvest. You reap exactly what you vibrate. If you vibrate fear, you reap chaos. If you vibrate love, you reap healing. The hurricane was the trigger for everyone to see this truth with their own eyes. Now the choice is everyone's. Continue feeding the old pattern, or sow the new consciousness that the planet has already begun to sustain. It's important to understand that harvesting doesn't mean resting. Harvesting requires presence, care, and gratitude. It's time to look at what blossomed and learn from what didn't. Not all seeds survive the storm, and that's okay. Some needed to fall to make room for stronger ones. The same happens within us. Part of who we were will never return, and that's liberating. Because harvesting isn't about recovering the past, but about recognizing what has become eternal within you. The Earth is in a process of regeneration, and we are the hands of this regeneration. Each conscious act is a seed planted in the collective field. With each gesture of kindness, respect, and truth, we help the planet stabilize its new vibration. Melissa initiated the cleansing, but maintaining this balance is our responsibility. The harvest of consciousness is continuous, a cycle that renews itself with each dawn. And those who learn to harvest with their hearts will realize that what once seemed like chaos was, in fact, the garden being prepared to bloom again. There's a moment, after the darkest night, when the first ray of light crosses the horizon and touches the damp ground. It's a silent scene, but deeply symbolic. The return of light. It's in that instant that the world breathes a sigh of relief and realizes it has survived. Melissa, by fulfilling her role, has created space for this light to be reborn, not only in the sky but within people, because every time the darkness passes, the light returns, more aware of itself. It's no longer the same clarity as before. It's a mature light, one that recognizes the shadow and still chooses to shine. The return of light is also the return of hope. People begin to leave their homes, still wary, still fragile, but with eyes filled with renewed faith. There is something sacred in seeing the world rise again. Every gesture of reconstruction is an act of love. Every wall built, every seed replanted, is a silent prayer for life. The hurricane took much, but it did not take the human spirit. On the contrary, it strengthened it, because it is in facing chaos that the inner light proves true. Melissa was the fire of purification, and now the light returns with a glow that comes from within. But the light doesn't return alone. It returns with responsibility. To be enlightened isn't just about feeling peace, it's about sustaining clarity, even when the world is still confused. It's about choosing to act with love when it would be easier to react with fear. It's about keeping your heart open even when there are reasons to close it. This is humanity's new task, to be bearers of light, not out of heroism, but out of conscience. The earth needs people who radiate the same radiance it is striving to emit, and each of us is a spark of this transformation, a living lamp lit amidst the planetary rebirth. The return of the light also teaches us about gratitude. Gratitude for what endured, for what fell, for what begins anew. Gratitude is the fuel that keeps the light burning. It transforms trauma into learning, loss into wisdom, pain into strength. When we can be grateful even for what hurt us, we understand that nothing was in vain. Melissa brought destruction, yes, but she also brought clarity. Clarity of purpose, of values, of direction. Now what the planet asks is simple: preserve this light. Caring for it is caring for the future. And if upon hearing all this you feel something spark inside, a warmth, a desire to begin again, a silent certainty that the worst is over, know that it's the same light shining again within you. It never went out. It was simply obscured by the clouds of fear and distraction. Now with the sky clearing, it can expand again. And the more people let this light shine, the brighter the planet will become. Melissa was the spark that rekindled humanity's beacon. The rest of the journey is ours, to continue shining even when the world still seems dark. Everything that falls rises differently. After cleansing, after purification, after light, comes a new beginning, and it is silent, yet powerful. Humanity's new beginning will not be marked by grand speeches, but by small, conscious actions, by neighbors who help each other, by strangers who become brothers, by people who, when they look to the sky, understand they are part of something much greater. Melissa was the sign that the old cycle is over. The new world is not a distant utopia. It begins the moment a heart decides to act with love. The new beginning is the synthesis of everything the hurricane represented: cleansing, liberation, reconnection, and rebirth. The earth is vibrating at a different frequency, and every human being who chooses to match this vibration helps the planet stabilize its new harmony. Old structures have collapsed so that new ways of living could emerge, ways based on truth, simplicity, and cooperation. What was ego is now unity. What was competition is now sharing. What was fear is now transformed into faith. Melissa was the warning, but she was also the seed. Starting over is also a commitment. It's not enough to wake up. You must stay awake. The world will try to pull you back into the old rhythm, into the noise, into the fear. But now you know what silence teaches, what the wind reveals, what water purifies. The true beginning is living in a state of remembrance, remembering connection, remembering essence, remembering purpose. The hurricane has passed, but the learning remains. And each of us bears the responsibility of keeping this awareness alive, so that the earth doesn't have to scream again. And if there's one thing Melissa made clear, it's that a new beginning doesn't come from outside. It's born within every human being willing to rebuild themselves. When you choose to live with more compassion, more truth, more presence, the entire planet benefits. When you heal a wound within yourself, you help heal a part of the world. Humanity's new beginning is collective, but it begins intimately, invisibly, silently, like the seed breaking through the soil after the rain. It's in this almost imperceptible gesture that the full force of life is revealed. Hurricane Melissa wasn't a punishment. It was a wake-up call, a call to remember who we are, to wake up, to love more and fear less. The cleansing has begun, and awakening is already a reality. Now, it's time to live the new. If you've made it this far, it's because you feel it pulsing within you. So, I invite you, stay awake, stay light, stay true. And if this message touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, because there's much more to be revealed in this new era. And write the keyword in the comments, Renaissance. I want to see how many of you have truly walked with me to the end of this journey. The new world begins now, and it begins with you.